Greetings, friends. This is Chris Batts, your host of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. In today's episode, I spoke with one of the few female managing partners at large law firms in the United States. We discussed her journey to leading an Am Law 200 firm, how they, post-2008, innovated in their legal services to create a competitive advantage and deliver value to their clients. We also discussed her leadership style, a book recommendation, and so much more. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast and leave a review on iTunes. We interview corporate defense law firm leaders, partners, general counsel, and legal consultants. You're listening to episode 58 of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast.
Broadcasting from Kansas City, this is the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. In each episode, you'll receive actionable ideas and hear personal leadership stories of both men and women serving as leaders and executives in the legal industry. Enjoy a front row seat as Chris Batts speaks with general counsel, legal consultants, and law firm leaders and law partners at the top corporate defense law firms from around the United States.
Welcome to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Batts with the Lion Group. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Deborah Reed, managing partner of Thompson Hine. Under her leadership, Thompson Hine has transformed its legal service delivery model and in 2014 launched SmartPaTH, the firm's framework to provide clients with transparent, efficient, and predictable legal services. SmartPaTH and Debbie have received national acclaim from publications such as Financial Times and American Lawyer for innovating the practice of law. Deborah received her law degree from Boston University School of Law. Welcome, Debbie, to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Chris. It's great to be here. I look forward to talking with you.
Thank you. Debbie, let's just jump in. And I know we want to get to your role at the firm, but tell me, was it your plan from the beginning to be a lawyer?
I didn't plan to be a lawyer. I actually planned to do what you're doing. Perhaps I was planning to be an investigative reporter, and I majored in journalism, but a professor encouraged me that maybe I could do something else and that I had an analytical mind and I ought to think about doing something other than investigative reporting. He suggested law school. I started looking at it, considering it, and here I am.
Do you think your journalism kind of gave you skills or insights into the legal industry?
I don't think so. I actually was just speaking yesterday with a high school student who's starting into undergraduate school. She was doing a shadowing exercise with one of our lawyers, and she wants to be a lawyer. And so she's doing the sort of classic, I'm majoring in political science because I want to be a lawyer. And right. She said, do you think that's the appropriate route? Everybody told me to major in political science. And what I suggested to her, honestly, is a more traditional route. I think focusing on the basics, math, quantitative reasoning, and philosophy are actually three areas that really spur or enhance your analytical thinking. Really, excelling in law school is all about excelling in analytics. And I frankly found the philosophy courses I took to be the most meaningful and most preparatory for law school.
That's excellent. And so you landed at Boston University.
I did.
What was like the recruiting process? Did you know the firm you wanted to land at or where you were going to work?
I liked Boston a lot. And I was thinking, all right, maybe I would like to end up in Boston eventually. But I started working for K&L Gates. Then it was Kirkpatrick and Lockhart, and I was in their Washington, D.C. office. So I was thinking, maybe I made the wrong move to go to Washington. I ended up really liking Washington, D.C. It was a great place to be a lawyer, a great place for a young person to be a lawyer. But then I met my husband, and he took a job in Cleveland. So I ended up in Cleveland and at Thompson Hine.
That's wonderful. And you're from the state of Ohio, correct?
No, I'm actually from Pennsylvania. I'm from outside of Pittsburgh, so a little close, but about equidistance between Washington, D.C. and Cleveland.
Okay, fair enough. What led you to Thompson Hine? Because you've been at, I believe, only two law firms.
It was a really interesting process, if you want the truth. At Kirkpatrick and Lockhart, K&L Gates, I was a tax lawyer, and I happened to be working quite a bit with the then managing partner of Kirkpatrick and Lockhart, Chuck Queenan. And he was a taskmaster, a brilliant man, but spent a lot of time mentoring me. And when I left, he called all of his Harvard Law School buddies at Jones Day, Squire Sanders, Thompson Hine, and said, have I got a package for you? And so I went to each of these firms, having had them open their doors to me because Chuck Queenan called his buddies from law school, and I selected Thompson Hine.
Wow. Would you mind sharing, why Thompson Hine over some of the biggest firms that, with names like that?
Well, honestly, it was the way I was welcomed and the way I related to the people on the days that I interviewed, quite frankly. All of them had great practices. They did.
Sure.
And for a tax lawyer, all of them had great tax departments. And I just really liked the people.
That's excellent. Well, liked it so much that now you're the head of the firm. I'd love for you to share that journey. Did you wake up one day knowing that you were going to be the managing partner of a large law firm?
Not at all. So I guess when I got here to Thompson Hine, I was just given a lot of responsibility pretty immediately, actually. So I was put on the new lawyer committee, which is the committee that hires new lawyers. And I think I was the first associate that was put on the new lawyer committee. After that, I was then put on the lawyer personnel committee, which is the committee that regulates compensation, then promotions. Now it's more driven by practice groups, but then promotions for non-partner lawyers. And I then became chair of that committee. And then I was asked we had a different organizational structure for a period of time. And I was asked to lead a department of tax, employee benefits, trust and estates, and healthcare lawyers. And then I was put on the executive committee, and then I was hiring partner while I was on the executive committee. And then I was made managing partner. So I did have a lot of experience. I've fulfilled a lot of roles here on the way.
Did law school do this for you? Was it the way you were raised? In high school, you're kind of gravitating towards leadership where people put you in those roles?
I would say law school did not prepare me this way. If anything, I came from a family with a very strong moral compass. My family instilled in me pretty basic values that go a long way to developing your leadership skills. Speak truthfully always, don't have personal agendas, do your very best all the time, every day, and don't expect anything from the people you work with that you're not expecting of yourself. So those basic principles, honestly, probably did more for me, more to get me in the position that I am than any training I could ever have had.
That's excellent. Appreciate you sharing. Another question for you. So you took the helm of Thompson Hine as managing partner, voted in, and you were already executive committee member at that point, I believe.
I was.
2012, is that when you've done it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do they have terms, or how does that work as far as your role?
There are no terms for the managing partner. You serve a 4-year term, but there are no term limitations, excuse me. So yes, there is a 4-year term, and I am at the beginning of my 3rd term, but there is no limitation on how many terms you can serve as managing partner.
I guess another question is, did you have mentors along the journey for you in that, or any coaches that helped you in this, or was it just kind of innate in colleagues in the firm?
I would say, the first mentor I had was, I've already named him, Chuck Queenan. He was the then managing partner of Kirkpatrick and Lockhart and the predecessor to K&L Gates. And he, for whatever reason, took me under his wing. He demanded a lot. He demanded perfection. Every day when you would go in to report to him what he's asked you to look at, it was like delivering a Supreme Court argument. You had to think of everything. You really had to think about, all right, what questions is he going to ask me? How am I going to be prepared for those questions? What answers do I need to have other than the answers to the direct questions he asked? He would throw you in the deep end every day, and you had to swim or you sunk. And he would give you a project, and on the way out of his office, after every project he would say, just as you hit the door, don't screw it up. And honestly, his expectations were really, really high. And rising to them was difficult, but honestly, put you in a very good place when you did.
That's wonderful. So it was a wonderful crucible to go through.
Yes,
for
absolutely.
growth.
Absolutely.
That's excellent. I have to say, did you model that now for the folks in your firm?
I don't know that it works so well in today's day and age, honestly. I do expect a lot from the people that I work with, but I expect a lot from myself. But I don't think that would work quite as well in today's day and age, but I do expect a lot.
Good. Debbie, explain to my listeners, high level, what is Thompson Hine? Who is Thompson Hine?
So Thompson Hine is truly a great firm. We have hugely talented and skilled lawyers here, and it's not an AmLaw 1 through 25 firm. It's not a household name, but it is a firm that delivers tremendous work at extremely high value, in large part because of the innovation that we have in place at this firm.
You have offices, a couple of different offices in Ohio, New York, and Atlanta. Is that correct?
New York, Atlanta, DC, and Chicago.
DC and Chicago. Okay, great. And how many headcount at this point?
About 380. It goes back and forth between 370 and 400, depending upon days of the week, when the new class is entered, whatever.
All of that.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Can you tell me about some of the core practice areas you focus on? I'm assuming you're a full service general practice firm.
Yes, we are a full service general practice firm. I would say we're about evenly split between litigation and transactional work. We handle a lot of significant litigation for large corporate clients and institutions. We also have an absolutely marvelous M&A group. We handle mergers and acquisitions for very significant clients across the country and internationally. So it's a pretty sophisticated practice. And then we have all the other things, labor and employment, tax, and we have a marvelous employee benefits practice, a marvelous transportation practice, and trade, other regulatory practices. So we are absolutely a full service firm.
Hi, listeners. This is Chris Batts, legal recruiter and owner of the Lion Group. My team and I place legal and compliance talent around the United States and are known for our level of communication, speed, and strong track record. If you're an employer hiring your first attorney or first general counsel or adding talent to your corporate legal department or compliance team, we should talk. Also, if you're a corporate defense law partner or group wondering about your options for a lateral move, we should also talk. Every aspect of our process is confidential, fast, and thorough. Contact us by going to our website, findthelions.com, or you can text the word headhunter to the number 44222, and then complete the web form and we'll follow up with you shortly. Now back to the show. I know you're passionate about innovation and innovating in the function of a law firm to clients. Please share on that. I know there's some core areas that Thompson Hine is doing some very exciting things with.
I guess this gets back to when we got started and why we got into it. So we were coming off the economic downturn. We were several years off the economic downturn as I was taking the helm at Thompson Hine. And during that period of time, general counsel were under terrific pressure to reduce the cost of their legal services, to really mine significant value from their service providers, outside law firms included. And they really started to change the way they were purchasing legal services. And I think up to the economic downturn, and certainly the case when I was coming up through the ranks, it was really the law firms and not the clients that kind of dictated all the things that went into a project. What the deliverables were going to be, what timetable the project was going to take, who was going to work on the project, how much effort was going to be put into it, how much it was going to cost. Clients would call law firms back in the day, and law firms would do the work and present the client a bill, and the bill wasn't very detailed either. And I think the economic downturn really changed all that. And general counsel were being told by their CEOs, you need to reduce your legal spend by 20% this year. And they were turning to their law firms and saying to their law firms, I need more value and I need this done at a particular cost, and I need to be sure that you're going to honor that cost. And that was a new playing field for law firms. It really was. And as I began to prepare for this job and read what clients were saying about how they were purchasing legal services and how law firms were delivering those services, there was a real gap there between what clients were asking for and what law firms were delivering. I remember very vividly an Altman Weil survey that I came across as I was doing my analysis, and it basically asked, in your opinion, in the current legal market, how serious are law firms about changing their legal service delivery model to provide greater value to you? You could rank from 0 to 10, with 10 being doing everything they can and 0 not doing anything. And Altman Weil ran this survey for a number of years. The median score was a 3, and the average score was going down. And I looked at this and I said, wow, these are customers talking about their service providers, and they've been ranking them at a 3 for like 5 years. In what industry would that happen? Probably not many. And I thought, this is a big opportunity for the firm, and the firm agreed with me, and we decided we're going to tackle this. We're going to change the way we deliver services to align with what clients are looking for. And that sent us on our way.
That's amazing. So what did they say yes to, Debbie?
We decided that there were some overarching themes. Clients were looking for more predictability. They were looking for more efficiency. They were looking for more transparency in how law firms were doing things and arriving at their charges for what they were doing. And if we could build a system that delivered that, wouldn't clients view us as responsive to their needs? The leadership embraced this. We put together a group of people who, some of whom I knew would be naysayers and I knew would not embrace changing the way we were doing things. And we decided that we were going to focus on 4 things: legal project management, process efficiency, flexible staffing, and value-based pricing. But we bit off legal project management first because I knew it would be the hardest to embrace and succeed at. And we had this task force rallied around teaching our lawyers legal project management. And needless to say, we went down a couple of avenues and changed course and changed direction, but we finally arrived at a spot we needed to be. Our own program developers created some proprietary software that our lawyers could use to budget projects, to monitor our progress against the budget, and to produce these great graphic depictions that we could share with clients about where we were against budget. And so we started our lawyers working with this software. And, as I've said to others, you can have the best software program around, but if you don't teach yourself how to use it and how to perfect the development of budgets under the software program, it's really just a piece of software that sits on the shelf. So what we really needed was behavior change. And that was hard.
Talk to me about that. I mean, that's incredible change management that you're instilling in a antique dinosaur type of industry and organization.
Lawyers do not like change. They certainly don't. And we were completely changing behavior here. We were telling lawyers, okay, you need to understand what a client wants before you start doing it. You need to scope out the project before you start working on it. You need to come up with a budget and a work plan that matches the budget based on how you've scoped the project out with the client. You need to decide who's going to work on it at what rates in order to meet the budget goals of the project. You need to monitor that as the project goes on, particularly for these, multi-year projects. It's hard to do. When you start to veer off course on a budget, you need to make some course corrections. Or if you're veering off course because something that you did not expect in the beginning occurs, you need to go back to the client and talk to the client about the options of dealing with the unexpected. Do we want to spend more money? Do we want to spend the same amount of money? So we're going to adjust the rest of the work we're doing. And then at the end of the day, you need to do an analysis of how you performed against budget with your client. And, in some instances, those budgets lead to fixed fees. In some instances, they're just budgets. But if they lead to fixed fees and you veered off course, then the firm obviously is assuming the risk of our veering off course. So it was a tremendous behavior change. And honestly, the way we got there was we started to require budgets. And I give credit to the head of our business litigation practice group. He was the first to start to require budgets. And what I mean by that, if you had a matter and you didn't have a budget in place by the requisite period of time set by the practice group, your matter shut down to billing time, meaning that as a lawyer, you could not enter your time for a given matter if you didn't have a budget in place. And if you know anything about lawyers, they are, they're measured in part on the time that they bill.
Yeah.
And not being able to bill time is a pretty big thing as a lawyer.
Yeah.
So it really forced people to embrace budgeting. They had to. They had no choice. And like Malcolm Gladwell says, you do something enough, you get pretty good at it. And our lawyers are pretty good at it now.
That's tremendous. So it sounds like, so you mentioned the head of litigation championed and required change on its people.
Yes. And now we have mandatory budgeting for some significant amount of work in 11 of our 16 practice groups. And our goal is to get it to 16.
Okay. So it's still a work in progress. You guys are still making changes.
Not only is it still a work in progress, but the budgeting software that we put together, we're constantly refining it now.
Okay.
I mean, we're constantly making it better. We're engaging in enhancements all the time to make our budgeting tool more accurate, to make our budgeting tools easier to use. Like right now, one of the things we're doing is we're tagging our budgets with identifiers so that if you have a matter and you describe your matter in a certain way and you plug that into a database, it will spit back budgets that are like your matter in size, in discipline, in type of project, et cetera. That efficient access to similar budgets really allows lawyers to start at a good place. We're also mining our own data to make our budgets smarter. So if we can see that the average amount of time devoted to preparing an expert witness in a trade secret case is 150 hours, and you're doing a budget for a trade secret case and you put in preparing an expert witness 75 hours, you're going to be off the firm's norm. And so we're starting to build in drop-down menus on things that we do a lot of so that you can see, okay, well, here's how much it takes the average Thompson Hine lawyer for this task. If you're putting in another number, do you have a reason to be an outlier?
Let's jump to your software tool. Was this developed internally? Did you hire a third party?
No, it was developed internally. And we've developed this budgeting software internally, and we've developed a number of pieces of technology, software technology in-house. We do enter into a cost-benefit analysis. There's a lot of software out in the marketplace.
Yep.
And if it's software that does what we need it to do and we can buy it off the shelf, obviously that's a cheaper way to go. Sometimes we buy software off the shelf and then we augment it with some of our own development to get us to where we need to be. But, it depends. So we don't create everything, but we create those things where we think there's a void in what's available in the marketplace.
That's exciting. Is there ever a thought of licensing that for other firms?
A lot of people have asked me that.
Okay.
I would say right now, no. Once we get to a point in time where we're way past this and other firms are just getting there, maybe, but not right now.
Talk to me about the flexible staffing model. Do you have contract attorneys, or what does that look like? Is that a third-party provider?
We do have people all along a spectrum. So we have partners, senior partners, mid-level partners, junior partners. We have senior associates. We've got four different categories of associates in terms of their levels of seniority. We have senior counsel. Those are typically well-developed lawyers with pretty significant skill sets who offer the firm a lot, but aren't necessarily interested in generating business and all the things that go with becoming a partner. We have counsel, which is another category, usually a lawyer that isn't quite as developed as a senior counsel, who, for whatever reason, is off a partnership track, maybe because of their state in life, maybe because this is not what they want at the time, but they might jump back on. We have staff attorneys that are employed by us. We also use contract attorneys from outside providers. But the concept of flexible staffing is really to use the lowest cost qualified person to deliver the services. So it fits nicely in our budgeting because, what are the variables when you budget a matter? It's time and talent. So it's how much time you put into things. It might be how many steps you take, but how many steps you take, how much time you put into things, and who's going to do it. And so the more experienced the person undertaking the task, the more it costs. And so, many people have pointed out that law firms have a flawed model on pricing because the more time you spend with the most expensive timekeeper, the bigger your bill is and the more you get paid. And so what we're really trying to do is deliver value by coming up with a budget and then tailoring our staffing to that budget. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to do everything.
Part of that pricing and fees that you may receive, is any of that performance-based? Have you guys included ideas like that into cases,
Sure.
matters?
Sure. Yes, we have performance-based fees. One of the 4 concepts that we rallied around at the time we decided we were going to innovate our service delivery was value-based pricing. About 15% of our fees are other than on an hourly rate basis, and we would welcome them to be higher. And we actually are, we've embraced a large series of cases that are on a contingent fee or partial contingent fee basis, so I think that number will climb. But we do have value-based pricing so that when we deliver for a client, we may be paid more. And when we don't or a deal doesn't go forward, we may be paid less. The classic case is a contingent fee piece of litigation. So typically in a pure contingency fee litigation, you only get paid if success, as you've defined it with the client, is achieved. And we do have some of those cases. But there are lots of different ways that you can provide value-based pricing short of a straight contingent fee. Another would be when you're working on a transaction. Oftentimes, we will work on a transaction at a discounted rate throughout the transaction. And if the transaction closes, we will be paid a fee, a success fee for the closing of the transaction that makes up the discount that we provided throughout the life of the transaction and then some. And we're happy to embrace those models if clients are interested in them. So we're not afraid of them. We've got a full-time pricing manager who assists us with all different pricing models. We catalog what works in various circumstances. We've become pretty schooled on how to structure these, and we welcome them.
Debbie, because of all these changes, are you hiring non-attorney professionals into the law firm along
absolutely.
that value process? What kind of people are you hiring? What kind of skills or titles or things that you're looking to bring in?
So I would say the first person that we hired to help us on this journey was our Chief Practice Innovation Officer. That's his title. Somebody whose full-time job it would be to focus on innovation, to focus on legal project management, flexible staffing, value-based pricing, process efficiency. And look, I was looking for a needle in a haystack, and I found him. His name is Bill Garcia. He's been terrific. He has really been my partner in leading this charge. And, he's really moved our needle forward. But, law firms really, back in the day, there were lawyers, secretaries, an IT person, a finance department. Law firms are really complicated in today's day and age. So we've got we've got a number of people working in our practice innovation group. We have legal project managers. That's something that we have hired more recently. They've been remarkable. They really help us stay on task and on budget for these large projects. They have allowed us to delight our clients because they add tremendous value. It takes the senior lawyer out of having to watch the budget, monitor the budget, tweak, the timekeepers, stay on the backs of people who are working on matters to keep them working at budget. Hiring legal project managers, which is something I think we'll do more of, and those people report to Bill Garcia, our Chief Practice Innovation Officer, have really, really helped us deliver on our value proposition to clients. So that's one. Frankly, in our IT group, we have people who love to write code for us. They love developing programs for us. And, usually IT people in a law firm, they're all about security of your systems, making sure the system is up and running. We've got people who love this innovation aspect of what we're doing. And, to the extent we can have our own people write our programs, terrific.
Debbie, how do you define leadership?
So I think there are lots of different definitions and there are lots of different styles. For me, what has worked is probably most classically described as servant leadership. My job is to push the firm forward. It's not about me. It's not about the managing partner. It's about the firm and the success of the firm. And I will say that our innovation has really pushed the firm forward. Look, we have great lawyers. And I said that in the very beginning. We've got some real talent here. And without that real talent, it doesn't matter what your innovation is. So it starts with a highly skilled group of lawyers. We've just developed resources around that highly skilled group of lawyers that allow clients to experience higher value. But it's really about the success of the firm. And that's what I thrive on, honestly. There's nothing that delights me more than the firm enjoying success. I view myself as here as long as the partners would like me to lead them, but it's all about the success of the firm and their success.
Debbie, I always ask my guests, books that I recommend for my listeners. And I know you have one particularly I'd love for you to share.
I do. It's kind of a non-traditional book for law firms or lawyers, and it's called Different by Youngmi Moon, who's a professor at Harvard. One of the themes of the book is that people in an industry sort of all strive to solve the same problem. There's a herd mentality around solving that problem. And, it pays to be different. And it is one of the things that pushed me to really go down this innovation path, because there were other people who were talking about it, and there were much bigger firms with much larger resources that were trying to, make a claim there. But I was hanging out there for a while. I didn't know if this was going to work, but it was different. It was absolutely different. And that book, in part, spurred me to keep going. People were focused on other things, developing strong industry expertise and claiming a stake on industry expertise, which is not a bad thing to do, but lots of people are doing it. This was really different. And that book really pushed me in the direction to go for it.
Debbie, last question. If you could do anything and there were no restrictions and nothing that would get in your way and you had all the free time in the world, what would you be doing?
Outside of the practice of law?
Yes.
Well, I love art. My husband and I both like art very much. I probably would travel. I also like travel. So I would probably travel all around the world and study art.
Debbie, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for your time today.
Absolutely been a pleasure for me as well.
Thank you, everyone who listened to this episode of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. If you haven't already, please take a moment and subscribe. Also, we would love your feedback. You can leave feedback in 3 easy ways. You can go to the blog post on our website. You can click Give Feedback link in the show notes on your device. And then thirdly, you can text the phrase LFL podcast to the number 44222. That's LFL PODCAST. And thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. This podcast is for education purposes only. This content cannot be used for commercial use without written permission from the Lion Group. If you like this podcast, leave a review on iTunes.